It's Erin Anderson with the Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching. I am super excited that you have tuned in today. Let's get talking about how to heal from betrayal trauma. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. I have with us another fabulous guest. Her name is Emmalou Penrod. And Emmalou is she's a mother, she's a grandmother, she's a former teacher, and she's taken all of this experience and wrapped it together to become a family relationship coach. And I've sat down with her, I have chatted with her, totally on board with what she teaches, because I feel like it's you've got that grandmotherly wisdom, and who doesn't need that in this life right now, right? And you take on like her experience with kids and bringing families together. Oh, she's a jewel, she's a gem. You guys are going to love her. And so we're going to be talking today about boundaries to have in the home when porn is present. Totally, I feel like this is something she can definitely talk to, because as she's been working with families and special education needs in her children and in her students, right? This was actually something that came up fairly commonly. So without further ado, welcome Emmalou, for being here.
Well, thank you. I am happy to be here.
So we were, and I really am glad you're here, by the way. Like, this is going to be an awesome podcast. And we were just talking before we hit the record button about like some of the things you see porn affect, right? There's like different relationship dynamics. You've got, your relationship with money, your relationship with time, relationship with God, relationship with self, relationship with family, relationship with other people, right? There's lots of different places that we can actually put these relationships. um and you've seen like what pornography does, to the children, to the wife, and not only the husband, but when porn is in the home. Like, tell us about what you've seen.
Well, what I've seen is, first of all, there's that precious marriage relationship. Trust is lost. It's a
Mm.
betrayal,
Oh, it is.
definitely. I think it affects the man's self esteem. He no longer, he may even hate himself or struggle with those emotional feelings, experience some shame, or at least a dissociation from a normal, healthy, loving relationship. Now, when children are in the home, I ended my teaching career in a residential treatment facility for youth at risk. And this was an issue.
Mm.
We were trained that when young children are exposed to pornography, if they happen to look over dad's shoulder or open the laptop after dad's used it or whatever, and they're exposed to pornography, it completely rewires their brain.
Mm.
They lose that ability to emotionally connect with other human beings. If there isn't some intervention, if they then become addicted to pornography themselves, and quite often they do, then they're not able to view other people as human beings. They're objects to be manipulated. And we were cautioned about this, that if we're dealing with a student who had this history, that they would be very charming and pleasant, but it was in order to manipulate us, to be aware of that they don't have those normal, natural, healthy human feelings. Other people are just objects to be used. And that, I think, is the biggest heartbreak, to do that to a young child. So I just wanted to mention that, not to start out with the worst, but that is an impact that, it does. And and even if they're not exposed to it, they don't see it, they're very much aware of the tension in the home. You know, children are sensitive. We may think that, well, we're not saying anything in front of them, but they're aware energy is going somewhere else. They can feel, they can feel that. And they tend to internalize and blame themselves. There's something wrong with me.
Right.
I'm flawed.
Yeah, because they don't have the ability to conceptualize that this is not them. Right?
Mhm.
Here we've got mom and dad. These are the people that they are supposed to rely on. And in a child's mind, mom and dad can do no wrong. And
Mhm.
so when mom and dad are not functioning properly or healthily, yeah, like that is what the child thinks. I'm the problem. I'm the one that's doing wrong. Something's wrong with me, right? And so it creates actually a developmental trauma from a very early age, even if they're not exposed to it.
And that emotional strain of there are some things we can't talk about. I just have to deal with this on my own.
That is just, oh, heartbreaking. It's so sad. It breaks my heart to see, little ones struggling so badly with that, because a childhood, in my personal opinion, right, should be where the child can play. They're not afraid of what's going to happen. They're not afraid of mom, they're not afraid of dad, they're not afraid of the family, splitting up. That they literally kind of have a bit of a carefree environment, right? Because
Mhm.
mom and dad have provided that safety, but porn rips that away from them.
Well, and think how it affects their mother. You know, it could damage her self-esteem. She may begin to feel like there's something wrong with me. Excuse me. I'm not enough to satisfy my husband.
Hmm.
And you can't teach children to be confident and to believe in themselves if you don't believe in yourself.
Right. Right.
So I mean, it's harmful to the woman. I mean, that puts her severely impacts her ability to provide that love and nurturing that her children need, you know. Well, and she's got to take care of herself, right?
Hmm. Right. Right.
It's not selfish for a woman to want to satisfy her needs. You know, you've got
No.
to fill your cup before you can.
Well, and not only that, I mean, she's dealing with the majority of the mental load, in the home when
Mhm.
you're dealing with kids and like the cooking and like the cleaning and the organizing and oh, now this kid needs this and this child needs this and there's always somebody tugging on her with a need. And when porn is scooping out her soul in a sense, like there's really no better way to explain that, right?
Mhm.
There's so little to give. And so it does, like it really causes a big crack in the foundation and in the safety of the home. So what happens to children's neural development, spiritual and emotional development? We kind of talked about like the emotional side of things, right? Like obviously it's causing them to be feeling very unsafe, neglected, unloved, because neither parent is able to necessarily give what they need to give to these children, right? But what happens to their actual like neurodevelopment and their spiritual development?
Well, I mentioned what happens if they're exposed to it. If they, it really changes their neural functioning.
Hmm.
It alters them that way. But even if they're not exposed to it, that you know they're writing when they're very young, they're very impressionable, and they're writing those mental programs that define how they view themselves, how they view the world around them. And so it impacts how they react, how they interact with others, how
Hmm.
they feel about themselves.
Hmm. Yeah,
And it
Absolutely.
leaves them very, very much vulnerable to being
Yes.
victimized.
Yes, it does. And here's the like a man who is into pornography doesn't have the like one of the first things it does is it actually deadens their protective instincts, you know? And so it leaves his family wide open to all kinds of attacks, not just spiritual attacks, but like physical attacks too. Like it really does cause a lot of issues that way, you know? So we've talked about like spiritual, like neurologically too, like what that does to a child is it also starts to kind of create this you're an object kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? In order to get their needs met, they learn to manipulate. They learn to do things that aren't healthy, right? Because we will do as humans, we are wired to survive. And when our needs aren't met in childhood, we will learn to do all kinds of not good things to try to get those needs met. And so this is where you start seeing people become sociopathic, or you might start seeing them become narcissistic. There's lots of other things. How do we get mom into a healthy place emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, so that way, we can start to help her feel like, I can give to these kids, right? That I can give to myself, right?
Yes. Now, being, mothering children in the best of circumstances requires a lot of strength, confidence, belief in yourself, self love, the ability to love. So, in this situation, now she has this monumental task, this challenge before her. She will need this support. She will definitely need to get the foundation of having a strong connection with God herself, having deep faith, believing in herself, believing in her value. It's easy to assume, well, I deserve this, or, I'm flawed, therefore, this is all I can expect. But if she can get that support from whatever source, I firmly believe, turning to that higher power, God, and relying on that and understanding her true identity and
Hmm.
her true worth as a human being, as a daughter of God,
Yes.
as one of his creations. And when she can stand strong in that knowledge, and when she's doing, taking some self-care, this is
Yes.
not selfish.
No.
Taking some time to nurture her soul
Hmm.
and pursue those activities that nourish her, whether, taking a walk in nature, listening to music, pursuing a passion.
Yes.
Some of
Yes.
these hobbies aren't just hobbies.
No.
They feed our soul. So
Yes.
she needs that kind of support. I think being able to talk to other women who are experiencing or have
Something,
been through
something.
this.
Right. And with a caveat here too, like, a lot of women, I want to say like I've joined, you know, being a betrayal trauma coach. I've joined groups. I have listened to other women, and you don't want to, if you're trying to heal from betrayal trauma, a husband's porn addiction, trying to put in that self-care, don't be talking with someone who is going to bash your husband.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually something that's
Yeah.
very, very crucial to your healing. Okay. And the reason why is number one, that brings in a very, very negative, very, very toxic energy to you, one that you don't need. You're already in negative, you're already in toxic, and that puts you in a deeper deficit with yourself emotionally, right? Two, you're already dealing with some self-doubt usually. You know, if your husband's dealing with pornography, that feeling of, well, what's wrong with me, right? That is very much there. And so you might start to question yourself and say, like, why am I dumb? Why would I choose him? Right? Like all those kinds of things. You don't want to go there. Okay, that only gets you deeper and deeper and deeper into your spiral. So if you're going to get support from other women, get support from women who are not going to bash your husband, who aren't going to um like immediately tell you to divorce him or immediately, unless if he's being physical abusive, right? Like get away. But you want someone who can actually be compassionate with both of you to actually
You
see
want,
both sides, right?
yes, you want the positive energy, not the negative energy.
Yes,
And you'll recognize it. If the person you're talking to helps you feel hope, helps you feel stronger, you're talking to the right people.
exactly. Exactly. And you know, this actually brings us into the boundary, right? Because we've got like four main boundaries that you and I had talked about like how, like what to set up to make sure that you feel safe in your home when porn is consistently attacking you and your kids, right? And the first one is boundary number one is self-care. That's not a negotiable. That might mean you might have to get a little creative, right? I've seen husbands who are like, yes, honey, like I know I'm doing things that aren't right. I am really struggling to get it under control. Thank you so much for being patient with me while I work on this. Here, let's like make sure you have a night off. Do what you need to do to get your care in, right? Like let's see how I can like let me support you too. I've seen husbands like that, right? And we call them the mild husbands, right? The medium husband doesn't really care. He's kind of a bit of a cocky person, um, and often kind of blames the whole problem on her. That husband isn't going to be super supportive of your self-care. And then you've got the jalapeno, right? That person is just really, really struggling. The jalapeno often is abusive in lots of different ways, right? They could easily snap at the slightest thing, right? And they're very spicy in a sense, okay? I see wives who have all different types of husbands, usually the mild, medium, or jalapeno, right? Obviously, if you've got a husband who's mild, that's great, right? But if you're with a medium or jalapeno, okay, you're going to have to really learn to rely and trust yourself, right? Rely on and trust yourself. That might mean getting online and looking for some sort of an online job so you can be with the kids and earn your own money, okay? We live in the age of information. We live in an age where you can sit at home and make $1,000 to $2,000 a month from your computer. It is possible. It happens all the time with teaching. Maybe there's something you can start coaching. There's billing. There's people writing greeting cards or blogs or like there's lots of different things that you can do to earn money from home if you just research, right? If you start doing some research. The second thing too, right, is you might have to take some responsibility and find a babysitter, somebody that you can actually take the kids to so they're not being left at home with dad. I know, like, especially if there's somebody out there that's like, oh my gosh, that feels exhausting, that's depleting, right? You've got to start taking some responsibility for your self-care in whatever way possible and start having your own back because this is the first piece to setting a boundary. Boundaries don't work unless if you've got fantastic self-care.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. What do you like? Do you have anything to say to that?
I agree.
Agree completely. We'll go with that. But
I
this
did.
is
I did.
yes, but this is like the first caveat, the first boundary that we talked about, Emmalou and I, is self-care. That is a non-negotiable, right? And so one of the ways you can say that to your spouse, right? And you kind of have to be careful. Like if you say something to a jalapeno, right? They can fly off the handle, all those kinds of things. So you really need to be careful. And maybe sometimes you don't say anything at all. To you, you just state the boundary. My self-care is worth it. I am going to make sure it happens, right? And if your husband is consistently getting in the way and consistently trying to shut that down, this is something I really want you guys to pay attention to. Is the marriage still worth it? What do you say to
Yes, you
somebody
need
like
to
that?
love yourself first.
Yes.
You're not an object. You have divine worth, and you
Mm,
deserve to be cared for, to be
yes.
safe.
Yes. And you need to make sure you're replenishing your bucket. Um, the second boundary is make sure the kids are safe, right?
Mhm.
Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically.
I like
Just,
your idea of maybe instead of leaving them with dad, have, yeah, someone else. Yeah.
yeah, take them somewhere else, right? You have to kind of gauge your husband on some of this stuff, right? If hubby is good, like, bless my husband's heart, he's a sweetheart, I could totally leave my kids with him and he was really good. But there are some women who don't trust their husbands,
Hmm.
to leave even the kids with them. And so if that's the case, find someone that you can trust that would be willing. There are people out there that will support you, right? They're there. You just have to find them,
Yes, that's true.
okay? And not only that, it's a good piece too because it allows the kids a chance to get away from a toxic environment, you know, often. What do you say about like how else would we get kids into a healthy space? Like what are some other ideas you have?
You know, look for extended family members if they're nearby, and especially if you have a family maybe that has that atmosphere of love and joy in the home, put them in that environment.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And also check your thinking a little bit. Like I hear a lot of women that say things like there's just nobody there to support me. I don't have anybody there to support me, right? And that becomes a belief that you prove true. Like the brain wants proof. And so it will start to actually prove whatever you say to be true. And so be very careful with that statement and with it saying that there's nobody around, there's nobody to support me.
Hmm.
Find the people that are. There are good people everywhere. Even if you don't have family, even if you don't have extended family, this is where we want you to start joining a church group, right?
Hmm.
Start gaining a community around you. You are never alone, and you don't have to be alone, right? Community is there. We just have to find it. Okay, number 3, be honest, right? Now, obviously, with a jalapeno, you really do have to tiptoe around them, right? Because if you were to come out and say, I do not appreciate the way you're behaving, I do not appreciate like the way you're speaking to me, um, and I'm gonna go take care of myself. I'm going for a date night with myself. I won't be home until tomorrow morning, like all those kinds of things, right? The jalapeno can snap at the littlest thing. So if that's the case, sometimes you have to kind of gauge these things, right? If you're terrified of your husband, you really need to ask yourself again, is this marriage worth it? Right?
So we're talking about you not only need to be honest with yourself, you
Hmm.
need to be honest with your husband.
Yeah, we do, right? And you do really have to be honest with both, right?
Hmm.
Because if you are allowing your husband to dictate your every move, that's not honest with either one of you.
No.
It's not.
No, and if you're trying to kid yourself, like, well, it's not that bad, at least he's providing for us financially. We can just overlook this. You need to be honest with yourself. But when you say honest with your husband, you also mean letting him know how it's affecting you, rather than
Yes.
pretending like that you don't notice or you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly, exactly. And like I said, in the rare cases where you do have the jalapeno, being honest doesn't necessarily look like using your voice. Being honest looks like taking action, right?
Mm-hmm.
And getting yourself safe
Yeah.
and the kids safe. And getting out of there, don't communicate, don't do anything. Maybe being honest looks like actually starting to document the things that are happening, right? And doing everything you can to get yourself into that safe space where you've got support, right?
Yes.
That's honesty. That's actually taking a look at the situation and not allowing what is not okay to continue. That's honesty, okay? But with the mild and the medium, most of the time you can use your voice and you can say, "No, I am not okay with this. This is not happening." Right? I had a client who had a beautiful conversation with her husband, right? Um she and I chatted and I had to ask her to get really honest with herself, right? This third boundary. Like, what are you not okay with? And she mentioned that she's not okay with her husband being on his phone, right? That she didn't like him um, being on the phone because it made her feel unsafe. He was consistently distracted from the family, wasn't connecting with people in the family, and so it kind of made her feel like she had a third kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to ask her, so how do you feel about that? Like, what do you want to do? She's like, I seriously want to take his phone away from him and like sell it, get rid of it. And I said, okay. And I had her like walk her through like what are the results of each one of those if you did something like that. And are you doing this number one because it's best for you, best for the family, or are you doing it out of anger to get revenge, right? Because it's a totally different action depending on what the emotion is, right? You can have the same action but a very different result based upon the way you're acting, like what you're acting out of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she made the decision to be calm, but she took her husband's phone one night while he was asleep. She had bought another one that only had call and text. That's it. No internet, right? And she took her husband's phone and smashed it. Okay? And I'm not saying that, like, to those of you listening to the podcast, I'm not saying that's always the best thing to do, okay? But it gave her some peace of mind. And when he came to her, it's like, why would you do that? I didn't give you any, like, we hadn't talked about this. We didn't come to this decision together. She said, you didn't talk to me about every single time you looked at porn. You didn't talk to me about how you were going to use this phone. I was not a participant in this. We didn't make decisions together. And it was the first time he actually heard her. You know, bless his heart. I have to give kudos to her husband because he was like, "Oh, you're right."
Mm-hmm.
You know, used that phone, and they ended up doing a lot better from that moment on. Both of them, right? Because he kind of started to understand how she was feeling.
It's that communication.
Hmm.
She needed to communicate her feelings to her
Hmm.
husband, and this sounds like this is a way that worked.
Yeah, exactly. And it was honest, right? But the problem with, I think, communicating in anger is it's very cloudy. We can't
Could blow up in
communicate.
your face.
Yes, and we
You would
can't.
have to know your husband. You would, yeah.
Yes, and you can't take clear action with the clouds, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that anger's bad, but it's just something you want to think about before you act on it. Okay.
Yes, it's true.
Number 4 is also stating the fact that porn is no longer allowed in my home,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. Time to draw the line in the sand.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is this is like, again, where we start getting into that communication with your husband, right? When we say, I'm sorry, porn is no longer allowed in my home. So you have to check this at the door. You have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this because it's not allowed. However, if you insist on using pornography, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to hate you. I just want you to know that you're going to have to go somewhere else to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't let you back in the door. Right? Because not only, like, if he's going to go somewhere else and view pornography, he's still bringing the energy of it with him in the home. He's still bringing the entities. He's still bringing the images. He's still bringing it into the home because he's an active user.
Exactly. And
And
I love the wisdom when you describe these steps. If this it is attempted, this saying porn is no longer allowed, at the beginning, as soon as you find out you're not ready, the woman isn't strong enough. She needs, I love these steps that you outline. They're key to, this is the culmination of when you can say, not in this house.
yes, yes, exactly. And you need to have that confidence in your ability to be able to have the self-care, be able to create, the money and the things that you need to create, right? To be able to communicate very clearly with your husband and be able to get to that point where, okay, husband, it's time for you to separate yourself from this, right? And
And if you tried it before you had all of those, and he said, no, I won't, you would back down. You wouldn't be strong enough.
mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I love your steps. They're brilliant.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, bringing this back full circle, when mom has these steps in place and these boundaries, right? What do you see happening to the home and the kids and the husband from there?
Well, it shifts the entire atmosphere. First of all, instead of seeing mom as a victim or powerless, mom is now an active participant. Mom now cares enough about the children to want them in a safe environment. They will feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And as the parents communicate and their relationship becomes stronger, they will feel that. And even more powerful, they'll see that it's okay to have problems, but when you work together to overcome them and become a better person because of it, and they'll see that change in dad. Dad will probably become more engaged with them. He'll be a better father.
Mm-hmm.
And mother, now feeling confident and secure, is a better mother.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll feel that difference, that increased love, the peace, the reduction of the tension. Home will now be a welcome place to be. It'll be safe.
I love it. I love it. And it's amazing how, it's been amazing to me in my own personal journey, having to heal from these things and my own childhood trauma and like all those things to see the difference in the energy, the difference in our home and the difference in my own children, right? And it just simply took me taking back my life. And this is what boundaries do, is they give you the ability to get your life back on track.
And what a powerful example you are.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And same to you, to see like to be able to help families come together and connect again. This is so key. It's something that is being lost, you know? And
Yeah,
we need to bring society back together and not have such a fractured family unit anymore.
I agree.
I completely
And
agree.
I love your approach that can keep the family intact. You're not saying be submissive and put up with whatever your husband dishes out. You're saying first, take care of yourself. Keep yourself safe. Keep your children safe. Be honest. Communicate openly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
then make the decision. Make that standard. And by the way, this is the most helpful for children. The most damaging environment for a child is one of chaos, when there are no standards.
Yes.
There are no boundaries.
Yes.
And when they see that structure, they feel safe. They're secure.
Yes.
They
And
know
it
what's
breeds,
expected of them and what they can expect of their
and
environment.
it breeds such confidence in them. It totally
Yes.
does. I agree. Emmalou, thank you so much for being with us today. You've been invaluable. You were such a jewel and just so much fun. We'll have you back again for sure. And if there's anybody that wants to connect with you, get in touch with you, how do they do that?
My website is healingyourfamilies.com. They can also find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, just Emmalou Penrod.
Emmalou Penrod. Go check Emmalou out, you guys, if you'd like a little more help in connecting your families together. And if you want some help on those boundaries, reach out, give me a call or a connection. Like, I've talked to you guys so many times about how to connect with me. There's a link in the description below. Book a call. Book a call with me, book a call with Emmalou, and we'll see you guys on the other side, guys. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna